What if I told you that in 1970, 5 hardened criminals discovered something so terrifying that they begged to be sent back to prison, and what they found in that abandoned barn still haunts the Canadian wilderness today, watching, waiting, feeding. This is the true story of the Immortal Cannibal who has been killing for over 300 years and the night that changed everything forever. On July 17, 1970, when darkness swallowed the New Brunswick countryside, 5 desperate men serving life sentences made their escape from Dorchester Penitentiary. John Lee Parker, age 27, Jack Fisher, 32, Sam Wedmore, 36, George Hamilton, 29, and Lemuel Fleming, 41, but their freedom would become their nightmare because 20 kilometers from the prison walls they stumbled upon what they thought was salvation but was actually a feeding ground that had been claiming lives for centuries. 2 days later, only 2 men returned, broken, traumatized, telling authorities about something that defied all logic, something that should not exist in our world. This is John Lee Parker's confession, a story so disturbing that it was buried for decades until now. We had been planning our escape for months, dreaming of reaching America where no one would know our crimes, where we could start fresh, but we had no idea we were walking straight into the hunting ground of a creature that had been perfecting the art of killing since before our great-grandfathers were born. We broke free at 2 a.m., running north through the wilderness, planning to turn west after crossing the Memramcook River, our hearts pounding with the thrill of freedom, but freedom was an illusion because something ancient was already tracking our scent. When dawn broke and we saw that old farm in the distance, we thought our luck had turned. The place looked abandoned, decaying, like it had been forgotten by time itself. The house was filthy with overgrown bushes choking the walls, and the barn looked ready to collapse, but appearances can be deadly deceiving. We approached carefully, splitting up with 3 of us covering the back door while 2 knocked on the front, ready to tie up any inhabitants so we could get food and water before continuing our journey to what we thought would be freedom. But what we found inside would make us wish we had never left ourselves. Jack opened the front door and called out that nobody was home, so we all went inside to search for supplies. The house was as rotten inside as out, smelling of decaying wild animals, but we found canned meat and beans which seemed like a gift from heaven, though heaven had nothing to do with what was waiting for us. The water didn't work, so we sent Sam outside to find a well. But 10 minutes later we heard him screaming for us to get outside now, his voice carrying a terror that chilled our blood, and when we ran out that back door we heard him again shouting from the barn, telling us to get in there immediately. We ran toward that barn with its doors slightly open, our hearts racing, already on edge from being fugitives, but nothing could have prepared us for what was inside because some horrors are beyond human imagination. I was the first one through those barn doors, stepping into the musty darkness, letting my eyes adjust to the gloom, and that's when I saw Sam standing there with the strangest look on his face, like he had seen something that broke his mind, and then out of the corner of my eye I noticed a figure, a man standing just a few meters from Sam, watching me with eyes that held secrets darker than the deepest grave. He had long silver hair flowing past his shoulders, appeared to be about 60 years old, but there was something timeless about him, something that whispered of centuries lived and countless deaths witnessed. And when the other boys came in behind me they froze just like I did because we all felt it, that presence of something fundamentally wrong with this world. Jack, always the hothead, demanded to know who the old man was and if he lived there, but the stranger just kept staring at me without saying a word, those eyes boring into my soul like he could see every sin I had ever committed, every dark thought I had ever harbored, and I knew in that moment that we were no longer the predators in this situation. When the old man finally spoke after Jack's more aggressive questioning, his voice was calm and confident, carrying a slight accent I couldn't place, saying he had lived there for a long time, but the way he said long time made my skin crawl because I sensed he meant longer than any human should live. We tied him to a chair with baling twine, Jack ordering Sam and George to secure him while the old man offered no resistance, just sat there staring with that expressionless face that held more menace than any threat could convey, and I felt a chill run through me because I had grown up with evil. My father had murdered my mother when I was 14, and I could smell danger like a wolf smells blood. The old man began telling us his story, claiming he was born in Sisterstown, France a very long time ago, saying that when he was young something terrible happened to him that made him unable to die, that he no longer feared death but longed for it because each day was torture on this God-forsaken earth, and he warned us to leave before nightfall with such sincerity that it scared me more than any threat could. We ate our canned food and shared water while the boys talked about their American dreams, but I couldn't shake the feeling that this old man was the most dangerous thing I had ever encountered, more dangerous than any convict or guard or cop, because there was something inhuman lurking behind those ancient eyes. As evening approached and we prepared to leave, I fell asleep during my watch duty and woke to find the old man gone, the baling twine ripped to shreds on the ground, torn apart with inhuman strength, and we heard noises coming from the back rooms of the barn that made our blood turn to ice water in our veins. Jack, trying to prove his toughness, went to investigate those sounds while we waited, watching him disappear into the darkness, but what came next would haunt my nightmares forever because we heard something growl like a wild beast before Jack screamed and then went silent in the most terrifying way possible. We tried to escape but found the barn doors chained shut with a padlock, trapping us inside with whatever had taken Jack, and that's when we heard it again, that inhuman growl followed by something running on four legs toward us through the darkness, moving with predatory grace that spoke of countless hunts and endless kills. Sam's blood-curdling screams filled the air as something tore out his throat, the sound cutting off abruptly in a wet gurgle that told us he was gone, and Lemuel yelled for us to run, but there was nowhere to go because we were trapped in this feeding den with a monster that had been perfecting its hunting skills for centuries. I ran blindly through that dark barn, crashing into things, almost knocking myself unconscious, until I reached what I thought was the back wall and stood there trying to catch my breath while the silence pressed down on me like a burial shroud, broken only by Lemuel's dying screams from somewhere in the loft above. Then I heard Jack's voice whispering from the darkness, telling me he found a way out, but I knew I had heard Jack scream and die, so what was calling my name with his voice, what was trying to lure me deeper into this nightmare where reality had twisted into something unrecognizable? I found Jack bleeding heavily on the barn floor, helped him through a gap in the barn wall, and we escaped into the night, walking until dawn when we flagged down help on a busy road, knowing that people would recognize us as escaped convicts but not caring because anything was better than staying in that place of death. When police investigated the barn, they found the old man sitting calmly in the loft reading a book, asking what took them so long like he had been expecting them, and they discovered a hidden room filled with the bones of dozens of people, some picked clean, others with fresh tissue still clinging to them, including the remains of Sam and Lemuel. The search of the entire property revealed what authorities suspected were the bones of nearly 100 victims collected over decades, maybe centuries, with items in the house dating back to the 1700s, including a photograph of the old man that experts confirmed was taken in France in the 1850s, proving he had been alive far longer than any human should be. The old man was imprisoned until 1984 when he simply vanished from his cell, disappeared like smoke, and search teams never found him despite extensive efforts, but the family who later bought the farm reported seeing a strange old man walking the property boundaries, standing and staring before melting back into the trees like a phantom. When asked what killed his friends, John Lee Parker's answer was simple and terrifying: a werewolf, and Jack Fisher, who survived with severe injuries requiring his left arm to be amputated, corroborated every detail of this impossible story that challenges everything we think we know about the world. The old man never revealed his true name to authorities, so they simply called him the old man, and when asked if John's story was true, his chilling response was, "I don't deny it," spoken with the confidence of something that had been feeding on human flesh for centuries and felt no shame about its nature. But here's what terrifies me most about this story: if this creature has been killing for over 300 years and simply vanished from prison in 1984, where is it now? Is it still out there in some remote location, still hunting, still feeding, still adding to its collection of human bones? And what would happen if you stumbled across its current hunting ground on a dark night when you thought you were alone? This true story from the Canadian archives proves that some monsters are real. They walk among us, they have been perfecting their hunting techniques for centuries, and they are still out there waiting for the next group of unsuspecting victims to wander into their web of death and terror. What's your theory about what the old man really was? Have you ever encountered something that defied explanation in the wilderness? Share your thoughts in the comments below, because stories like this remind us that the world is full of mysteries we may never understand. And if you want to hear more true horror stories that will keep you awake at night questioning what's really lurking in the darkness beyond our safe little bubbles of civilization, then subscribe to this channel, because the truth is often more terrifying than fiction, and there are so many more stories of real monsters waiting to be told.